I'm sitting in the same office where I once trained 3 different department heads. Only now. I'm not wearing a badge, no clipboard, no business casual. Just me, in a tailored charcoal suit flown in from Singapore, and a contract in my hand that's about to slice through the company like a scalpel. They don't recognize me at first. Not until I lean back in the chair, cross one leg over the other, and smile. The same smile I forced every time they applauded my hard work, right before handing the reward to someone else. 2 years ago, I was standing in the same break room, holding a cheap plastic trophy that read, Employee of the Quarter. My 3rd one, but the promotion went to Thomas. Thomas, the same man who once asked me how to print double-sided. The same man I trained, twice. The same man who called me the real boss when things got tough. They gave him the office I built from the ground up. And they gave me applause. Angela clapped the hardest, always so polished, always smiling. She pulled me aside after the announcement, her tone sweet like frosting. "You're such a valuable asset, Nora," she said. "So consistent. You're the glue." That was the moment. Not when they skipped me over. Not when Thomas got the job. But when Angela smiled and told me to be proud. Proud of being invisible. You know what it feels like to be called reliable when what they really mean is disposable? Like they know you'll never walk away because you care too much, try too hard. I did, until that day. The only one who noticed the look in my eyes was Ravi, soft-spoken IT guy with a crooked smile and a better read on people than any manager I'd met. He came by my cubicle later with a lukewarm coffee and concern in his voice. "I saw what happened," he said, watching me closely. "Again?" I nodded once. That was all I could manage. He didn't say much, just paused, then quietly added, "You ever think about leaving? Not just quitting, but leaving?" That night, I didn't cry, I didn't vent, I didn't drink. I opened my old laptop, opened my personal project files. The ones I used to work on late at night before exhaustion made me forget I had dreams of my own. Angela's words kept echoing in my mind. "Don't aim too high too fast. You'll scare people off." No, I wasn't too ambitious. I was just surrounded by people who couldn't handle a woman who didn't need their approval. 12 times. I trained 12 people who outranked me. Watched 12 promotions happen through gritted teeth and polite smiles. They thought I was quiet because I didn't know my worth. They were wrong. I was quiet because I was calculating, watching, learning. And now, I'm back in this office, not as an employee, but as the consultant they can't afford to lose, and they don't even know yet. This deal I'm holding, it ends them. You don't start out angry. No one dreams of revenge on day one. You start with hope, with ambition, and you believe that if you work hard enough, someone will notice. That's how it began for me. I was 22, fresh out of community college, raising my son alone. No savings, no connections, just me, a resume with a part-time retail job and a stomach full of nerves. They gave me an internship, unpaid. I didn't complain. I showed up early, left late, smiled through every mind-numbing spreadsheet. I became the one who always said yes. Yes, I'll stay late. Yes, I'll fix it. Yes, I'll train the new guy. People started calling me reliable, then dependable, then essential, but never promotable. I worked my way from intern to junior analyst in 3 years, another 4 to make senior. I never missed a deadline. Never. Took a real vacation. I gave this place more than I gave myself. And for a while, I thought it would pay off, but it didn't. The first time it stung, I told myself it was a fluke. Marcus had charm. He was outgoing. People liked him, even though I had trained him, even though he once came to me in a panic over a client presentation. I'd already prepped. He still got the bump, and I got a Starbucks gift card and a "you're so important to the team" from Laura in HR. Laura always smiled at me like I was her little sister. Said she admired my work ethic. But when promotion time came around, she disappeared, wouldn't look me in the eye, wouldn't speak up in meetings, wouldn't say my name when others repeated my ideas like they'd thought of them themselves. Started keeping track, emails, timestamps, version histories. I wasn't paranoid. I was observant, because it wasn't just Marcus. Then came Dev. I trained him for 6 months. He shadowed me on client calls, mirrored my reports, even asked me to review his feedback before sending it to upper management. Then he got promoted, not just up, above me. He became my supervisor, tried to act casual, like we were still peers, but every time he gave me an assignment, I could feel it, that silent power shift. The worst part? He started using my own strategies in meetings, phrases I'd coined, frameworks I'd built, without my name ever attached. I remember one Friday, sitting in that glass conference room, watching Dev pitch a model I'd designed from scratch. Laura nodded like it was genius. Angela smiled like it was progress, and I sat there, invisible. I told Ravi about it later that night as we walked to the parking garage. He glanced around, lowered his voice. "You're too good at what you do," he said. "You make them uncomfortable." I frowned. "Because I do my job?" He hesitated, then looked at me seriously. "No, because you don't beg for attention. You don't flatter. You don't play games. You scare them, Nora. They don't know how to own you, so they ignore you." That line stuck with me. They don't know how to own you, so they ignore you. I went home that night and sat on the floor of my kitchen. The house was dark. My son was asleep, and I just stared at my fridge for a long time, wondering if I'd made a mistake. Was I too quiet, too efficient, or just too easy to overlook? I used to think success came from being the best. Turns out, in places like that, it comes from being the loudest, the safest, the most agreeable. And I was none of those things. I was precise, unshakable, quietly capable. They mistook that for weakness, and that too was their first mistake. Because the moment I realized I wasn't broken, just invisible to people who chose not to see me, something in me snapped into focus. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to chase, and I sure as hell wasn't going to sit through another round of applause for someone who used my words to climb a ladder I built. I started collecting every slight, every omission, every false smile like puzzle pieces. Not because I wanted pity, but because I was building a map, and that map would lead me right back into this office, one day. But not as Nora, the team player, not as the reliable girl, not as the woman they forgot. No. Next time I walked through those doors, they'd remember my name, whether they liked it or not. Some betrayals don't come with daggers. They come with coffee mugs and compliments, with claps in meetings and "you're doing great" emails. And then, one day, you hear the truth. Not screamed, but whispered. It happened in the break room. I wasn't even supposed to be there. I'd forgotten my badge and had to walk around to the side door, the one that loops past the kitchenette. That's where I heard Angela. Her voice was low but sharp, like something rehearsed. "She doesn't know how to play the game," she said. "She'll never leave. She's useful right where she is." Marcus laughed, the kind of laugh people use when they know they're safe. He said, "She trains half the team for us. I mean, why promote her when she basically builds the house for free?" I froze, not out of fear, but because every moment, every gut feeling, every skipped opportunity suddenly made perfect, devastating sense. They weren't overlooking me. They were using me. The first time I helped Marcus, he looked lost. He'd come to me with a client proposal, incomplete, misaligned, all over the place. I rewrote half of it that night, just so our team wouldn't lose face. He thanked me. Weeks later, he pitched it in the boardroom as his own. I sat there, heart pounding, wondering if I was paranoid or just invisible. Turns out I wasn't either. I was strategically ignored. Laura? She was the one who told me my promotion file had timing issues, twice. Once because they were restructuring, the second time because we're considering. Outside hires this cycle. Both times I accepted it, like an idiot. Dev. He used to sing my praises behind closed doors, but every time my performance reports came back, they read like a checklist. Nothing special, just consistent. Consistent. Their favorite word for people they want to keep just low enough. That night, I didn't talk to Ravi. I didn't open my laptop. I sat in my bedroom, lights off, silence thick, and I wrote down everything. Every time I stayed late while someone else got the credit. Every time I covered for Marcus. Every time Angela promised next quarter. Every single time I trained someone who ended up above me. I listed it all, one line at a time. By the end, I had 8 pages, and not one of them was blank. Then I walked over to the box I keep under my bed. The one with my old name tags, thank you notes, the 3 employee of the quarter certificates they gave me instead of a raise. I took the last one, the one I'd held onto like proof that I mattered, and lit a match. I watched the edges curl inward. The paper crumpled in on itself, the gold seal turning to ash in seconds. It didn't feel freeing. It felt like mourning, but somewhere in that grief was steel. Helen noticed first. She was new, assistant to the recently appointed CEO, only a few months in. Young, sharp, and not yet poisoned by the office culture. She stopped me in the elevator one morning and said, "I saw your presentation in the system. Why wasn't your name on the pitch deck?" I blinked. No one had ever asked that. I shrugged it off, told her it was probably a mistake, but she frowned. "That's the 3rd file I've seen like that," she said. "You should be in those rooms, Nora." Then the doors opened and she left. She didn't know it, but that sentence stuck to my ribs like glue. You should be in those rooms. I'd spent so long adjusting myself to fit in corners that I forgot I ever belonged in the center. 2 weeks later, a consultant named Rohan was brought in to modernize systems. Tech-savvy, calm, outsider. Everyone was scrambling to impress him. I didn't. He noticed. After a software migration meeting, he came up to me and said, "Your architecture logic is tight. You lead the back end on this?" I paused, told him, "Yes, but it'll probably be someone else's name on the summary." He raised an eyebrow. Didn't say anything, but I saw it. That flicker. Recognition. The kind of man who sees leverage when it walks past him. I didn't mind. He would become useful later. I wanted to scream, to flip a table in that break room the day I heard Angela and Marcus talk about me like I was furniture. But that's what they expected. That's what people like them always expect. From women like me, an outburst they can label as unstable. So instead, I smiled and I got to work. I didn't need to fight loud. I needed to move smart. Every slight, every oversight, every stolen line of code or credit or client, I began collecting it, not in a journal, not on Post-its, but in a digital ledger. Backed up, time-stamped, encrypted. My own little archive of silent crimes, because if they wanted me silent, they chose the wrong person. I wasn't going to yell. I was going to rewrite the entire game. Quietly. And when I returned to the top of this building, it wouldn't be with a request. It would be with a signature and a smile. You don't need to scream to burn something down. You just need to stop feeding it and walk away with a smile. That's exactly what I did. I walked into Angela's office on a Thursday morning with a resignation letter folded neatly in my hand. She looked up, confused but calm. "Nora, is everything all right?" I nodded. "I'm just ready. For something new." She waited for me to explain. I didn't. I just smiled, thanked her, and left. There were no fireworks, no dramatic scenes, just silence. And that silence was my beginning. For years I'd stayed late, cleaned up their messes, saved projects that were doomed from the start. And while I was doing all that, I was also building something. Freelance clients, data audits, process improvements for startups that actually respected input, side work, quiet, legal, profitable. Nobody at the company noticed because they never looked close enough. I'd saved enough, but I needed more than money. I needed strategy, and I wasn't going to do this alone. The day after I left, I got a text from Rohan. Saw the announcement. Smart move. You free to say. Talk? We met that weekend. He'd been pushed out quietly. Not a culture fit. Translation. He asked too many questions. We sat across from each other in a small cafe, and I laid it out plain. I want to build something clean, agile, ruthless, and I want to make sure they never recover from what they did. Rohan leaned back and said, You don't want justice. You want a controlled demolition. I smiled. Exactly. We started small, filed our LLC, set up infrastructure, hired lean, 2 analysts, 1 accountant, remote, silent, focused. We didn't even name it after ourselves. Just a clean corporate name. Neutral. No one would know it was me behind it. Not yet. 3 weeks in, Helen reached out. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. She'd seen it happen. She just wrote, I have files. I think you'll want them. And she was right. Budget misallocations, flawed rollout strategies, future plans, all built on shaky forecasts and ego, everything I needed to know about their weaknesses. In a single zipped folder. Then came Daniel, a VC contact I'd met years ago when I was brought into a merger meeting as technical support. He remembered me. You were the one who corrected their forecasting model without being asked, he said over the phone. I told him what I was doing now, and why. He paused. Are you building this out of anger or vision? I said both, but the vision is bigger. That answer got me a meeting, and that meeting got us funding, enough to move fast, to compete, to cut. Then came Maya. She had been working in their data department, quiet, brilliant, always overlooked. I remembered her from the elevator rides, always carrying 2 laptops, never invited to meetings she built dashboards for. I messaged her, just a simple line. They underestimated me too. She replied in less than a minute. I'm in. What we built wasn't flashy. It was smart. We started targeting contracts they were too slow to protect. Clients they'd treated like afterthoughts. We approached them with sleek proposals, faster delivery times, and, most importantly, insider knowledge of what they hated most about their old service provider. Because I knew. I'd written those pain points into my reports for years, reports they never read, and then we published the case study. It wasn't tied to my name. It didn't even mention the company directly, but it dissected their workflow, their failure patterns, their management gaps. Line by line. Industry blogs picked it up. One called it The Brutal Teardown of Legacy Inefficiency. Rohan laughed when he read that headline. That's a polite way of saying you exposed them, I corrected him. No, I reminded them. Victor came in next, COO of a mid-sized competitor. We met at a tech conference under neutral pretenses. He'd heard of the case study. He'd also heard rumors of a new player quietly poaching contracts. He asked if it was us. I didn't confirm, but I didn't deny it either. He said, if you're aiming to squeeze them out, I might be interested in helping. I told him I wasn't aiming to squeeze. I'm aiming to replace. He raised his glass and said, well, now you've got my attention. And then came the final blow. Maya had quietly kept in touch with Laura's assistant, a young woman named Callie, smart, underpaid, ignored. Callie hated the place, but she was afraid to leave. Maya brought her over gently. One afternoon, she dropped a sealed envelope on my desk. No words, just a look. Inside were HR memos, internal notes that said, "Candidate has leadership gaps, lacks assertiveness. Could create imbalance in team dynamics. Better suited for support roles." It was about me, multiple entries, all written by Laura, falsified feedback, fabricated evaluations, filed behind closed doors, never shared with me. Maya sat across from me as I read them. She looked at me and said, "She was never not ready. They just didn't want you up there." I nodded slowly, not shocked, not even hurt anymore, just done. You know what's worse than being betrayed? Being gaslit into thinking you were never good enough. They fed me silence. They hoped I'd shrink. They built their comfort on my compliance, and now their comfort was gone. We didn't destroy them overnight. We let them bleed, quarter by quarter, contract by contract. We hired smarter, moved quicker, and struck quieter. We weren't loud, we were exact. Angela once said I didn't know how to play the game. She was wrong. I was the game. And she never learned the rules. I didn't want to ruin them for revenge. That's not what this was. I wanted them to know. I saw them, and I wanted them to feel that silence, the one they left me in, the one they laughed in, the one where they thought I was nothing, because silence can be a sentence. It can be the sharpest sound in a room full of noise, and when wielded right, it doesn't echo, it ends. Revenge doesn't always come with flames. Sometimes it walks in, wearing a suit, calm as ice, and takes a seat at the same table where you were once dismissed. Their profits had plummeted. Client trust shattered. Employees were quietly leaving, and leadership was panicking. I knew it was coming. I'd built the storm, and now they were calling for shelter. Angela reached out first. She left a voicemail, voice thinner than I'd ever heard it. "Nora, we need someone who really understands how things work here. Someone like you. Someone like me. No, not like me." Me, but she still didn't know. Didn't know I was the one they were losing contracts to. Didn't know the woman they once deemed not leadership material was now the reason their board was sweating through closed-door meetings. I accepted the invitation. Told her I'd hear them out. They set the meeting in the same boardroom they'd denied me entry to for years, the same one where they once announced Dev's promotion with champagne, while I took notes from the back of the room. Walking in felt like stepping through a mirror. Only this time, I wasn't waiting for approval. I was holding the pen. Angela stood to greet me, fake warmth in her voice. She gestured toward the table, said, "We're so glad you're here. We really believe this can be a new chapter for everyone." Marcus was there too, eyes down, shoulders tight. Laura was silent. Of course she was. And in the corner, Ravi, now a junior partner in my firm, leaning back, smiling like this was the best show he'd ever seen. They started presenting. Slides, numbers, buzzwords. Angela spoke of rebuilding. Marcus mumbled something about mistakes and fresh perspectives. Then, they made their offer, an executive-level return, flexible leadership track. A promise to empower you the way we should have all along. I let them finish. Didn't interrupt once. Then I placed a single folder on the table. They looked confused. I opened it slowly, deliberately. Inside, a merger proposal. Angela squinted at the header. Her lips moved, but no words came out. I said, "You don't get me back. You get absorbed." The room went silent, the kind of silence that only truth can carve. Marcus looked up at me, guilt in his eyes. "I'm sorry, Nora. For what it's worth, I was just following the structure." I nodded. "I know, that's the problem." Laura still hadn't said a word, just stared at the table, like maybe she saw her reflection for the first time. Ravi didn't say anything either, He didn't need to. His smile said it all. I stood, straightened my jacket, and looked at the 3 people who once decided my future in whispers and side emails. 12 promotions, I said. 12 betrayals. I paused. Let the words sink. That's 12 years too late. Then I walked out, leaving them with the offer. Not a plea, not a resume, just a choice. Merge or vanish. I didn't take over the company. I dismantled it, quietly, strategically. Without raising my voice once, every decision I made was deliberate. Not to destroy, but to outgrow. Not to humiliate, but to outlast. They wanted me silent. So I gave them silence, in the form of contracts lost, credibility ruined, and trust they could never rebuild. I didn't fire back with fire. I didn't stoop to their level. I just built something beside them, taller, stronger, and let their own shadows swallow them whole. Someone once asked me, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" I see it now, sitting at the head of my own table, calm, composed, while the people who once ignored my voice now hang on every word, not out of admiration, but out of necessity. That's not revenge. That's evolution. And the best part? I never had to raise my voice to be heard. I just had to stop letting them speak over me.